If you haven't heard about Anchor by Spotify, it's the easiest way to make a podcast with everything you need all in one place. Let me explain. Anchor has tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or your computer. When hosting on Anchor, you can distribute your podcast on all listening platforms like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and many more. It's everything you need to make a podcast all in one place. So go ahead. Download the Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. Hello, everyone. This is Theo from Making It Make Sense with Isaiah, Theo, and Vincent. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Don't forget to like and subscribe our YouTube page at Making It Make Sense ITV and listen out for new episodes every Friday. Follow us on Instagram and leave us a comment at Making It Make Sense ITV. We look forward to hearing from you.
What's going on, world? Welcome back to Making It Make Sense with Isaiah, Theo, and Vincent. Today we're going to be talking about colorism. Oh
yeah. We'll say hello to Vincent.
Oh yeah, say hello to Vincent. Yeah, say hello to Vincent, everyone. Welcome him.
Hello. Thank you guys for having me.
Of course.
Vincent, let the audience know something about you.
Yes.
Well, I could just go with some of the generic stuff of I'm a 34 or 33. Wow.
You're 34? Yeah, you're 34 now?
No, I'm aging myself already. I'm 33.
Uh-huh.
I am Nigerian, Irish. I'm gay American. Kind of run through that. What else can I really say? I kind of do the typical corporate America 9 to 5 run through, but I love seeing my friends with their different businesses and like projects and stuff that they do. This is something that I've listened to the podcast before, and I really enjoyed like the perspectives that Isaiah and Theo bring to the table. So when they asked me if I wanted to kind of join them, I thought this was a wonderful opportunity to kind of bring another perspective of someone like me to the table.
Absolutely.
Wait a minute. Did you say you're gay? I can't do this with gays.
Ooh, this is awkward now.
Oh, snap. Am I on the wrong podcast?
I got to go.
Let me check this again.
Oh, you know what? I think my Uber's here.
Can check,
wrong
please.
room. My bad.
Well, welcome, Vincent. We're glad to have you here on this journey, and
Absolutely.
Let's get into this damn colorism.
Let's get into it.
100%. I guess really let's define colorism.
Let's do it.
What are your perceptions? If you want to give our Merriam-Webster definition of it, we can do that. We love that here.
So the definition of colorism is prejudice or discrimination against individuals with a dark skin tone, typically among people of the same ethnic or racial group. Get into it, people.
There we go.
All right. Well, I want to say we kind of have to understand that where it's kind of coming from, right? As far as like colorism is like kind of like the child of like racism to some extent, if you think about it, because society has taught people to equate like a superiority or like more beauty if you happen to be fair skinned. And the darker you are, whether it's like one race to another, or one ethnicity to another, it's still something that like puts people on different pedestals, and it makes it harder. And it's kind of like, in my opinion, kind of like springing off of that we're taught like that type of hate, so then we start internalizing into our own communities as well.
But you know what the thing a lot of people also forget, that there is colorism. There's a colorism here in America, on the light skin, dark, light skin black folks and dark skin black folks. Absolutely. But in Asia, Asian folks who are darker experience colorism in comparison to those who are lighter. There's a whole industry in Asia of bleaching creams and
Korea
not
especially,
wanting to
that
be
might be,
dark.
yeah.
And again,
Different.
these are the children of racism, colorism. And even in India, a lot of the Bollywood stars are not dark skinned.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of dark skinned Indians who face discrimination because they're dark. And also in Africa, there's a booming bleaching industry there. You have the light-skinned Africans, and then you have Africans who are dark-skinned, and everyone is wanting to be light-skinned because, like what you said, light skin or whiteness or closer to whiteness is beautiful.
Yeah.
So we can concentrate.
Or it's like not necessarily even just like, yeah, it's beautiful, but also we've been able to attribute life just, it's unfair. Like it happens to be easier when you're of a lighter complexion. Like even if you're not like white, so it's like it's just it's really kind of sad that like kind of that's how things are. But it's good. I think that it's something definitely that needs to be talked about more often.
And I have to add to just as so first off, so I think one of the important things too is to remember the space you're speaking from. So like for me, I'm speaking from the space of a yellow bone, black man. So, right.
I'm sorry to hear.
Listen, we can't all be blessed with as much melanin as our brother Theo here. But no,
don't you forget it, motherfucker.
but I think it's important to remember this, right? So I think that in the same way that white people have to understand the plight of their melanated counterparts, the lighter skinned people in that sense have to understand the plight of our more melanated people. So
yeah, absolutely.
Right. So I think it's our job. And I say this, I think I've said this in reference to being co-conspirators for our white accomplices. And I've said this in reference to, if you're a part of the LGBTQ plus queer community, for you to look out for all the other letters and all of the other sub-communities within the queer community, right? So I think it's our job to be those co-conspirators and those accomplices to our more melanated folks, because if it's not
something, so you have to have that sense of looking like even like look at yourself where it comes to you see how much colorism is with the Black trans community as well, like where on one hand Black people wanting equal rights is absolutely what they should want and what we need. But we cannot subject a certain niche of our community or like outcast them and not say that yes, we deserve rights but they don't, like
right. And I think too, like one of the things, and just like having seen it, so I'll say this, like having seen that like in my childhood, like things, I think it starts in in smaller spaces, right? So the way you witness someone speak to or treat differently. And originally it might come off as, okay, well, maybe that's just that relationship with that person. But I've seen just the dismissiveness, or the idea that, that someone is, okay, well, you're more white adjacent, so I'm going to be nicer to you, or that makes you more digestible, or that makes you less, in quotes, I'm doing air quotes here, aggressive.
That's right? All them.
Right. So
you dark-skinned MFers are always so angry.
Right? Like, and it's like it's very much like, okay, well, wait a second. What's the indicator there for that, but it becomes even more detrimental, not just on a mental health level, because you as a more melanated person will say, okay, well, what is wrong with me? Why am I being treated differently? What is wrong with this beautiful brown skin? You know what I mean?
And then like, you internalize all that garbage.
100%. 100%.
And it's harder because you see, like, you know, you're already feeling like that from the rest of the world.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like when you look in, you hope to have that camaraderie with your community. Like, you know what? At least they'll get me. They'll understand me. So when you get that type of stuff going on right within your own community, it's like makes you feel even more out of place. Like,
Absolutely.
where do I actually belong? Like, you know, why do I, you know, you start thinking, you know, you might start thinking poorly of yourself, or like really affect how you view yourself.
Oh, 100%. And I feel like that's where we can kind of sometimes use that kind of age-old quote, you know, where it's like, you know, sometimes it be your own people. You know, sometimes all skin folk ain't kinfolk in that sense. Because
But you know what?
Mm-hmm.
I just had a light bulb moment.
Yeah.
Two things. Me as a Afro-Latino, I've experienced colorism my whole life, and I think I mentioned this before in an episode we had last season. And I don't know of a world that does not exist that I grew up in that I did not experience colorism.
Yeah.
And I wonder for you, Vincent, you mentioned that you're you're African descent, straight out of the motherland, and Irish. And you look the way that you look. I can imagine that you yourself I've also experienced colorism from a different perspective that I have, being a dark-skinned, darker brown man.
Absolutely. And that's the thing, like everyone, there's so many different perceptions and like perspectives that people get from this. Being, you know, of an interracial, you know, family and having like, you know, mixed parents and being mixed myself, it's hard. Like, you know, sometimes growing up you might feel like you don't quite fit in quite anywhere, and then to also be, say, like a gay man, like it could be really confusing. Because, you know, my experience at times, I was either too black for the white kids or too white for the black kids. Like it was like, you know, I was always that could be that stereotypical person in those groups. And eventually, you know, you could take the optimism out of things, where it's like it helped me open up my mind to, like, you know, not being a victim of colorism and making friends with so many different people and such a diverse cultures and stuff like that, that I was able, like, kind of to work through it like that. But yeah, it's tough. Like when you like just kind of want to belong, especially at that age, like you kind of get in those moments where you just want to fit in and stuff like that. But yeah,
because I remember wanting to fit in also. Like, so this is how disturbing white supremacy is.
Yeah.
And this is where all this is stemming from. I remember having the same kid when I came to America, and I was hanging out with the African American kids.
Yeah.
Latino for the African American kids.
There you go.
And when I would hang out with the Latino kids, I was too black for the Latino kids.
Yeah.
And eventually I got to the point where I said, fuck y'all.
Yeah.
I am black. And
you're Latino.
And I have Latino ancestry.
Yeah.
And I'm going to live in that shit. So fuck y'all, and I'm gonna keep it moving.
Yeah.
When was it that you reached that point where you said, fuck y'all, and I am who I am, despite what you think I should be?
I think actually it really came into definitely throughout high school. And even before that, I'm very blessed to have like several, like, you know, childhood friends, like, you know, attached to me, like, or that were, you know, still connected. And so those were always there. And then it's not blossomed from that, where it's like, you know, as long as you have like a close network or like a couple support, like a security blanket or support network from, like, you know, your friends and your family, like you just kind of start not like giving a shit. You know what like. And I was also fortunate to grow up in an area that our school is very diverse. So we had thousands of students in our high school. So like we were able to experience, there's tons of other cultures and diversity around it. So it helped like people fit, like kind of no one quite always fit in anywhere anyway, if that makes sense.
You didn't grow up in Wisconsin.
Yeah, exactly. No shade. But even some of the small towns around, like the area I live in, they're very, like, you know, kind of suburban country, like, you know, usually there's only, like, you know, that one or two like black kids in the school, like they're lucky they got that Asian kid, like you know, they just have like that small demographic of literally like one or two, like, you know, people that, like, it's hard to, I don't know, to like kind of break through that.
Yeah.
I didn't have that wall or that hurdle, at least, if that makes sense.
I would even, you know, I guess I would even notice that, like, just in my sorry everyone.
And then oh, it's
Someone's
all right.
hungry.
Little
Ollie's in
vocal
there.
from the pups. I think one of the things too that strikes me is the idea that just the idea that by your complexion you are that's the measure of
Who
how
I am.
good or who you are, or how
Exactly.
much you matter and what your value is in the world.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just this network of, as Theo mentioned earlier, that network of white supremacy that has really bled into insidious.
And you kind of feel like, kind of isolated and lonely because you don't feel like no one quite gets it. But, also like you have to deal with the microaggressions, like from both sides as well, being like kind of growing up mixed and stuff, where it's like, oh, like, my friend, like, he's black, but like, you don't act or sound black. And even though it's like more based on, color and like visual, but it's like these other like things pop into it where it's like the same thing, like when like with, people of darker melatonin and stuff like that, or like, that were blacker than me or darker than me, it'll come up like, oh, like, why do you talk like that? Like, you talk white, like you talk. And I'm like, I don't know how I'm talking.
Shit?
I was talking like I don't even feel comfortable talking. Like,
when I tell you how infuriating that is, you speak. Oh, that's right in line with. Oh, you're so articulate and well spoken. Like,
for a black person,
for a black person, like,
for a black person,
like it's like
I was driving the other day, and I think that came to mind. Okay, oh my God, you speak like a white person. Shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
Why I'm speaking regular English.
From like darker, like you get people that from black people and like of all
your own people, your own kinfolk.
Yeah.
I'm speaking white. Shut up. It's just regular English.
Absolutely. It's, and that's the thing is, again, everything is this kind of scale of whiteness, like, oh, okay, well, so as long as you speak this way, then, oh, okay, this is digestible, or, oh, that's interesting that you do speak that way. Huh. And strangely, in reference to what? Like, what other way would you imagine that I speak? Like, what is the scale of reference here?
They probably expect every black person to speak Ebonics.
Oh yeah, like,
now don't get me wrong, I know Ebonics, like I could get it, but I know when to talk.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or when it's appropriate, like
And don't you find that that's a whole other thing on code switching, or rather having to code switch.
Hello.
To be digestible, but to me, I think, again, this is why we're not a monolith. We can exist in many spaces, or should be able to, rather. And
I like that. We should be
able to exist in every space and be every part of ourselves. But again, I really, going back to being a co-conspirator, if you are a lighter skinned or more lightly melanated black person, then I can't stress enough that it is your job. You need to also take on that plate in that sense, because you are, you kind of, in some cases, you have it a little easier because you're perceived as more digestible. So you have to.
And sometimes, and there's some situations that you do, and absolutely. I have been able to pass where I'm like, I'm coming across as not as threatening. Yeah. But the problem is, like, it's really like within our own community itself. Like, how do we expect other ethnicities to respect us if we're not willing to really have that type of respect or want the same equal rights for the rest of us? And like, instead of cutting each other down, like, going off of what, it's understandable. It's like, another, social construct that's been, created throughout society. It's just like, but it's like, we need to be able to like acknowledge it, identify it, talk about it, and then really work together as not trying to tear each other down based off of just the fact that we're lighter or darker than one another. We're still coming from the same culture and the same background.
I remember, and kind of going back into it, because I kind of left it adrift a little bit earlier, but I remember just as a kid, hearing stories about certain relatives intentionally favoring a more lightly melanated cousin or something over someone else because they were darker.
That's something right there. Like even in family,
Oh yeah,
how it's apparent. Like
100%, and where it'll still.
Does that make you cringe now when you?
Yeah, I'm thinking about it. It just maybe give me shivers.
So
like, even your own
icky.
family have to deal with that. Like it's horrible.
Oh
I
yeah,
can't
it's
imagine.
so icky and so obvious. It was like painfully obvious.
Yeah.
And just even like, I've had, like I said, like I've had relatives say, like in confidence, say to me, like, well, when I was, younger, this relative was very obviously and clearly favored, over me, and not just based on personality, because one relative happened to actually, the darker relative actually happened to be the more conciliatory and quiet and studious one versus the other relative. So
you're the black one.
Right. But in that, it's so funny because actually, personality wise, that the darker relative was more digestible. So it's just interesting, or considered digestible, right?
But then again, the insidiousness of colorism, the insidiousness of white supremacy and racism.
Yeah.
Because just like you said, again, my perspective, because I didn't grow up in, I didn't have the luxury of growing up in African American culture. I grew up in Latin America. When Latin America, this was very prevalent. They will call you negro or prieto, which is like black or nigger. And then they will always treat the lighter cousin or the lighter relative or the lighter brother or sister better. And they will always tell the lighter brother or sister or relative, don't marry a nigger with a hard R. They would say, don't marry a nigger. You have to make you have to, ¿cómo se dice? Mejorar la raza. You have to make the better by getting rid of the dark relatives. So the dark relatives are always considered other,
less than,
and you have to make the race pure by getting rid of the darkness in the family. So go marry another light-skinned person or go marry a white person so you can get rid of that gene from the bloodline.
Yeah.
Which is just like, what the fuck are you guys talking about?
Yeah.
And why, like, and honestly, if we're going there, it's like, well, wait a second.
It should be the other way around.
Right. Why would you want to dilute? Listen, we here in white with the white supremacists, what is it? They, we're the they want to be the dominant race, or the air, how do I'm searching for the word, the specific terminology, but not diluting.
Aryan was it?
What is it?
Aryan race?
I want to say Aryan, but it's more rather not diluting the whiteness of it all. But to me,
yeah.
Right.
Making it stronger?
Yeah, no, I know exactly
of that. But it's very much giving kind of like, well, wait a minute, why not the reverse, as you said, Theo? Like, why not, like, okay, well, fine, then stop diluting our melanin then. Like,
we wanted blackity black.
We want blackity black.
There you go.
And here's the thing is, even for like lighter skin folks like myself, like, here's the thing. If I hop on my 23andMe, 10% of it is British and Irish, and I wonder where that came from, because that.
However, I want to be honest and open. Like, totally. I've also used it to my advantage. I'm not gonna lie. I take my opportunities what I do. So if I walk into a job and I see that there's no black people there, like, I'm identifying on that application as black, because I know you guys need to get me in here. I know I could do this, but like, you have to work the system. The system won't be there, so you got to make it work for yourself. And
true, and that's not a bad thing.
And also other times where I've identified as mixed or Caucasian, or like, but it's also I just look around and kind of take in the people to see how
read the room.
Yeah, they're reading and how they're like, how are they really perceiving me? And
do you guys feel in your so I guess really for Theo, because Vincent, you just kind of explained, do you feel that so obviously you've directly experienced colorism, of course, but Do you feel like you've seen that? Like, have you witnessed it with other people where you've looked around and gone, "Oh, whoa, that is a blatant, disgusting display of colorism," like in a space where you've witnessed it?
Well, here in New York City, you see it all the time.
Right.
When I go to the bodega, I see it. I experience it all the time. When I'm at work, I experience it all the time. A lot of my Spanish-speaking patients, and mind you, with people who are coming to help for me, coming for help to me, are don't know, or they don't even think a possibility that I can speak Spanish and say the most derogatory things in front of me. I was told one time working in an ER that I don't want. This is a Spanish-speaking person told me they don't want a nigger provider. I don't want one. I want a white provider or an Asian one. Saying it in Spanish.
I'm like, die, bitch. I mean, you don't feel like that because you're a doctor.
And then I had to say,
well, I can't be a doctor because I'm all right, bye.
And then I love calling it out. And the minute I turn on the Spanish real quick and I told them in Spanish, it is very disturbing that you are here sick with an 101 fever and you only worrying about the fact of whether I'm Hispanic or not. But let me let you know that unfortunately my mother Hispanic, I'm Black, and you can have another provider. Have a good day. And with another provider that does not speak Spanish, they will have a longer wait in the ER because they have to use the language line, and that's a whole shitty process.
You're literally there to help, and all they see is your color. Like, and it's like
you
had to also be
experience
subjected to like color issues as well. So it's like, how dare you try to, again, think that you're better just because you're of a lighter skin, which is.
And she was. But then you also have people who are my complexion and darker in Latin America, and they don't consider themselves Black.
Yes,
exactly. In Dominican Republic,
yeah,
I'm Dominican. I am not Black. I am Panamanian. I am not Black. I am Puerto Rican. I am not Black.
I'm not.
And
Black,
they look blackety black
and stuff, and just you are. You're like your complexion is Black.
No. They will fight you. You better be careful.
But what's up?
They will fight you.
They will.
So be careful. They will. No, I'm not Black. Yo no soy negro. Yo soy panameño. I'm not Black. I'm Panameño. No, yo no soy negro. Yo soy dominicano.
But see how that word, the word insidious. See how deeply rooted that is. That even it's almost like it's literally a self-hatred, not even almost.
Yeah.
Right.
It's like it is something that ashamed to be Black, and it's kind of sad because it's really something. And like, to be honest, like you could be in that like growing up is like that. Like I've learned like to actually really enjoy and appreciate beautiful, dark, Black skinned people. Like you like start like I don't know, like because like
beautiful.
You're growing, they're beautiful. The skin pleasant, like there's like that beauty, and it's to appreciate it when it's like you've been told that it's been wrong, like whether from your environment of your family or like like just growing up in your communities, and it's like that has to be tough that they have to feel that as well. Like,
stop playing in the sun. Remember that, stop playing in the sun because you're gonna get dark. All these little dog whistles, like what the fuck,
right? And all just so it's almost like, isn't it all? It's giving very microaggression within the community.
Yeah. We don't need that with so much everywhere else.
And you hear that now in 2022. It'll be like, what in the 1883 is happening here? What did you just say? What did you just say to me?
What in the black?
But like you like to always say, Isaiah, can you imagine us as men, us as being queer, where we experience this colorism as Black men? Can you imagine Black, dark-skinned women?
Oh, I know.
On an everyday basis, in every room they walk in, they face the plight of colorism.
Because even like dark Black men are still sexualized and still like like have their like a bit like this whole how society perceives them or how certain people perceive them, but it's like Black women are always like really dark Black women get that, and like it's not fair because they're so beautiful.
Hypersexualized,
Yes.
dismissed, diminished,
Dismissed,
and
like,
minimized.
yeah.
Dehumanized.
Yeah.
Like literally stripped of all just all of these beautiful human aspects that they obviously possess, but for whatever reason, actually not for whatever reason,
and that
for white
follows them
supremacy
like
reasons.
everything, like, you know, the job force, like everything in their life is harder because of literally too much on their skin, and they get it from within their own community too, which is sad.
Oh, yeah.
Remember back in the day, there used to be there was a light skinned girl, dark skinned girl, competition. Sometimes clubs would not allow dark skinned girls come in because it was light skinned girl nights.
Yes.
Can you imagine that?
Can you imagine? You know, Cardi B, wasn't there recently, not that long ago, where she stood up and was like, yo,
Let more dark skinned girls in here.
Yeah. Like it was like, let them in, like you need to start letting them into your clubs, or it's again, it's insidious the way that it's just it's so terrible to be melanated. And it makes me so sad because there's so much beauty in the color of our skin. I just want to take 2 seconds to just, once again, I feel like we do this like periodically, if not really every episode, to be honest, but I just want to honor our Black women, all of the beautiful Black women in our lives. We just want to shout out to you guys like all day, every day. Blackity black.
Going strong.
Absolutely.
You got this.
And and another thing is, you don't have to be strong all the time.
Yeah.
Okay. Because you don't have to be strong all the time. You just have to Black woman, because as we know, it's not just a description, it's a verb, it's everything.
Yep.
So
just
you don't
be
have
you.
to be, just be you. You don't have to be a strong Black woman. You can just Black woman.
Yeah.
Just be you.
And there's nothing wrong with you at all. Like,
absolutely. In every color and shade.
But then they'll go out tomorrow into the real world, and the real world will spit in their face and be like, oh, look at Monica, angry little Monica. Just because she's dark skinned and walks into a room, it's just bizarre. It's white supremacy to me. Once I became enlightened and conscious, white supremacy to me has always been bizarre, and it makes no goddamn sense.
But that's the thing, we have to acknowledge that and make sure that this stays visible, because we're doing that to our own communities. We're doing that from within inside.
It's so true.
It's already from the outside, that's already there, that we all are experiencing. We don't have the room or the capacity to be doing that within our own communities.
And I think one of the things, or one of the messages too, to convey, especially in regards to colorism, but also just the overall mental health, melanated people experience and face a very unique set of mental health challenges that are attributed to a lot of other people and other spaces, because not only is there maybe just the general existing mental health from the human condition itself, but also because of things like colorism that just spin you out into a complete anxiety about existing. So I want to caution people to really dig a little deeper and think about where your headspace is coming from when you make someone feel that they are not good enough based on the color of their skin.
And also be aware, like, even if it's not something that you're doing, like, be aware of when you're in your own community and you see one person in your community singling out and targeting another person in your community just for being of a lighter complexion, and vice versa. Like,
end it, stop it, call it out.
Absolutely.
Call it out, and like, hey, like, make sure you include them and know that it's okay.
Oh, by the way, you know what's a good example of implicit bias and colorism and all this disgusting piece? I forgot in what state it happened, but it's recently, where there were 2 teenage boys fighting in the mall. Yeah, and one was black.
Yeah.
Where was it?
This sounds familiar. I can't place the exact location right now.
One was black and one was white. And the white boy was the aggressor, and he was the taller and bigger one. And the police came and brought them both to the ground.
I think I did hear about this. Yeah.
The police officers both attacked the little black boy and wanted them and it was just like, put her knee in the back of his shoulder, like in his shoulder blades.
Jesus.
While the little black white boy sat there with his hands folded, watching it all happen. Because those police officers saw the black person, period, and saw aggression.
Yeah.
They saw them as being the agitator, the instigator, and let the white boy, who was all of those things, just sit and watch. And all he was missing was some popcorn.
Mm.
But that's a good example that what happens every day, and to dark-skinned people and people of color. They are always viewed in that way because of these implicit bias and all these racial bias that people have towards people of color, to black people. Now imagine someone darker is magnified 10 times more.
Yeah. Wow.
And it's hard. I have seen it in real time because, I wish that I was darker, but I've seen it in people who are darker than me. I have seen just the insidiousness of it all. It bothers me. Now, once again, I'm the kind of motherfucker where I see evil, where I see something and hear something, I say something.
Mm-hmm.
Every time I hear that, because they're talking about a black woman here, or black woman's skin, or black woman's attitude, I would so what about it? Because if I was her, I'd be telling all you guys to go fuck off.
Yeah.
Right? Like, mind your, like, first off, you know what they say, they always say, you'll never, especially as a black person specifically, you'll never be alone. You know why? Because there'll always be some white person in your goddamn business.
Oh, well.
Okay? Never. So it's, it's frustrating because it's just like, mind your business. Like, nobody asked. Black women specifically did not ask you a thing, not nothing. So, let's also remember that.
No one asked for your opinion.
Nobody asked for your opinion, and that's how Mary had a little lamb.
Yeah.
And on that note, that's where we're going to leave it, people. Black, dark-skinned women, black women, again, stay strong, keep your head up like Tupac said. And fuck colorism.
Fuck colorism.
Until next time, everybody.
Until next time.
Until next time.